What's up, everybody? This is Autodidact. My name is Laban LaGreca, and in this video I want to talk to you about when nature contradicts science. To me, this is a common misconception that I feel I see in a lot of people today. And maybe I'm wrong. I really don't think I am. I've thought it through. But basically, in essence, I think so many people today have become devoted attendants to the religion of science. And we will see, let's say, for example, they say that this plant cannot grow in sand. And then we will be walking and we'll see that plant growing in sand. And then they'd say, oh, well, that doesn't make sense because science says that that plant can't grow in sand. And then they'll leave that situation thinking that science is still true and that that plant is just an anomaly. Maybe the plant is just an anomaly. I'm not going to say that. There are anomalies, and I know science can't necessarily account for anomalies. But I just think that we should keep this in mind. Science is ultimately, its only mission, only objective, is to try to explain nature. It really doesn't deserve any more of a pedestal than that. To me, you're putting the cart before the horse if you say that science is more true than nature. And I think if you put it in this simple of terms, people will obviously agree with me. Obviously, nature is more true than science. But I think that if you analyze a lot of people's beliefs that maybe aren't even apparent to them, the things they're saying, the conclusions they're drawing, whether it's apparent to them or not, deep written within them, I think they put science on a higher pedestal than what they're seeing with their own eyes. I've met this so many times in people, and I've done it myself. I think that's why, to me, it's a talking point, because I've seen it in myself where I wouldn't even trust my own senses. I wouldn't even trust my eyes, my ears, everything around me. I would say, well, that contradicts science, so I'm wrong. I'm wrong. Science is right, I'm wrong. My eyes, what's obviously in front of me, that's wrong. And I think that if you really trace the history of science, I think everyone knows this, back to the scientific method and stuff, the main tools that science uses are not syringes and petri dishes and whatnot. It's human senses. It's humans observing the world closely. That's all that science is. And if these theories start to get in the way of our own observation of things, they're no longer a help, they're a hindrance, in my humble opinion. And so I just want to keep that in mind. I want to encourage everybody to trust their own senses, to not become such a devotee to science that you forget what is actually real. Reality, nature is real. And if anything that you ever come across and perceive with your own senses contradicts science, throw science away. It's not an idol that deserves to be worshipped, in my opinion. So yeah, I hope you found that thought interesting and enjoyable. I hope you found it true. If you disagree, leave it in the comments. I'd like to hear what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. So I just want to tell a quick story about how this video even came about. I find it interesting. It's kind of like one of those divine moments, the way this video came about. Basically, literally just yesterday, my mother and I were having a conversation, and we talk about the exact thing that I just told you. We were talking about this. And then today, I'm listening to a podcast with Rick Rubin on the A16Z podcast, because he's talking about his new book, The Way of Code, or the Way of Vibe Coding. And he's talking about how in the podcast, he's always trying to position himself with these little coincidences. If a coincidence like this comes up in his life where he, he hears something twice, he'll try to create something based off of that, because he's like, that's not a coincidence. This is a sign that I need to make this. And so today, literally a minute later in that podcast, right after he's talking about how he's always following these signs, no lie, he starts talking about how people stop trusting their own senses and start trusting science whenever they can see something with their own eyes that contradicts science. And he's saying that we need to get, like, literally exactly what I just talked about. Exactly what I just talked about. He says 2 seconds after, or I guess a few minutes after, he was talking about how you need to follow signs. So I thought that was interesting. And since Me and my mom were talking about it yesterday, and then I hear it in the podcast. I was like, I got to make this video today. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.